The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Yo, Philly, how you's doing? Welcome to Philadelphia Baseball, past, present, and personal. I'm Bill Kashatus, your host on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. For many youngsters, their first experience with organized baseball comes through Little League. It's the vehicle that teaches them the fundamentals of the game as well as the intangibles of good sportsmanship, teamwork, and fair play. Not surprisingly, Little League, during its nearly 80 years of existence, has developed more than 40 million political leaders, pro athletes, award-winning artists, and a variety of other influential members of society. Founded in Williamsport, Pennsylvania in 1939, Little League Baseball and its sister organization, softball, are the world's largest organized youth sports programs with millions of players and more than 1 million adult volunteers in every U.S. state and more than 80 other countries. Each summer in August, the organization hosts the premier tournament in youth sports, the Little League World Series at Williamsport. But that's only part of the Little League experience. Beginning in 1989, Little League Baseball established a challenger division to give special needs youngsters the opportunity to learn and play baseball. The challenger division provides boys and girls with physical or mental disabilities ages 5 to 27 an opportunity to play baseball regardless of their limitations. This affords these children the opportunity to experience the emotional development and fun of playing Little League Baseball. Today, there are over 950 challenger programs in 10 countries around the world, and over 30,000 athletes participate in the challenger division every year. Here to give us a better understanding of special needs baseball are this evening's guests, Tom Toscani and Gary Brooks of Chester County's Berwyn-Paoli Little League, which has one of the largest challenger programs in the state of Pennsylvania. Welcome to the program, gentlemen.
Thank you, Bill.
Tom, let's begin with you. You were one of the founders of Berwyn-Paoli Little League, and over the years, you've served in a variety of capacities, including president, treasurer, and I know your favorite title, chief cook and bottle washer. Tell us about the founding of the organization and its mission.
Well, first of all, I wasn't one of the founders. It started in 1960, well before I was still playing baseball at that time in another league. But I got involved in 1986, and that was because I refused to be a director of one of the leagues. And I was coaching basketball at the Y, and somebody asked me if I would be involved, and I said no. And then later on that afternoon, somebody dropped a truckload of equipment in my backyard, and that's how I got involved. And I was a director, and then I became player agent after about 5 years, and then became president. So I started about 1986 getting involved, and then we started the Field of Dreams. I was involved with doing the lease for that, and then continued on and became president. But a lot of the Challenger program was developed because of the Field of Dreams, but we'll get into that. But basically, in terms of the organization and its mission, we try to encourage, support, and build good character, loyalty, and fairness among our youth in the area. Basically, that's really what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm. When and why did Berwyn-Paoli establish a challenger division? Were there parents who had inquired about special needs programs in baseball?
No, it happened totally by accident. I was, as player agent, I would be taking a lot of the registrations. Our league was growing pretty substantially at the time, and some big, good-looking fellow came up, and I didn't know who he was, and it was Dale Murphy, who was playing for the Phillies at that time.
No kidding.
He asked me, he said, I've registered my 3 children, but what about my 4th child, or whatever? What do you do for him? And I just looked at him, and I had no idea, and I believe he had Down syndrome. And so what happened is we had allowed some Down syndrome children to stay extra years in the Coach Pitch League, which only went till 8 years old, but some of them weren't that big, and so we let them play 9, 10, 11 years old, and they played there. And the parents were pitching, but it was a hardball, and they really had to play. So we didn't know anything about Challenger, and then he said, no, I heard there's a Challenger League. There's a place in Texas that has one. So we contacted Little League Baseball in Williamsport, and we found out there was such a thing. So 2 people, the then president, Bob Roggio's wife, Jeannie Roggio, And Terry Budd, her friend, checked into it and started. And they went around, recruited some kids from here, there, and everywhere. And they played a couple of years. They were initially the coaches, and they brought their children out to help out. And then the parents got involved. And after about 2 years, they realized they wanted somebody to play. So they went around to other local leagues and said, why don't you start one up? And that's what happened. They started, I think, 4 others. So there were 5 teams by 1992, in 3 years. And that's how it got down the area.
So Murphy played with the Phillies in 1990 and 91. So he must have approached you in 90. This is a year after Little League started the Challenger. So Berwyn-Paoli was on the cutting edge of this.
Yes, we were, by accident, of course. We're not that smart, believe me.
Well, impressive program, though. Very familiar with it because I coached in it. Tom, tell us about the Field of Dreams complex that you have there, which is the envy of many Little League programs. And then tell us about the kind of renovations that were made to the field complex in order to accommodate the Challenger program.
Well, basically what happened is our kids used to play all over, a field here, a field there, and whatever. And one of the older fellows in the league had made a contact with Philadelphia Electric Company about some area which basically had become a dumping ground. And I'm an attorney, and the president of the league at that point, John Marshall, was an attorney. So we met with PICO, and we decided to try to do a lease with them. And it was kind of funny because they gave us their standard lease of 40 pages, and we came back with about 35 pages of changes.
Wow.
And they came back and they said, you want the property? I said, yes. We should sign the original one with no changes. So we signed it. And it was favorable to them and favorable to us. But we didn't know how long it would last. So for years, John Marshall was president. He didn't know what to do with it. We had these plans, elaborate plans. We're going to build all these fields. But the numbers were just so out of line. And then Bob Rozier wanted to do it, and he couldn't do it, but they had started the Challenger program. So in 1992, I became president, and I said, well, let me give it a shot. And what I did is I just went to the township, and I said, what type of permissions do we need, and so on and so forth. And so what I did is I just went from place to place to place and just got them. And we had some battles with the township along the way, but then we started moving dirt. And I had some friends of mine who knew something about construction. I knew nothing about any of this stuff, believe me. And friends Marty Capoletti and Michael Capoletti, they knew something about construction, and they brought a friend in who was looking for a little work, and we'd pay him cash on the side. And then we would borrow trucks and bulldozers from Art DeSolis, and who was a paver, and we had no idea. We went down there with about 12 people to start building these fields. By the end of the day, there was about 25 or 30. By the next weekend, we started out with about 40 and ended up with about 60. By the third weekend, we had 125 people there with shovels and picks and rakes and just picking up stones and piling them and cutting down little bushes. And we really didn't know what we were doing, but we're just clearing ground. And then Rocky, who was our, excavator, he started moving things around, and we started really officially on November 6, 1992. And by June 30th, 1993, we decided to play our first game. And so we thought, who would be better to play our first game than our Challenger kids? So we brought the Philly Fanatic out, and it was like the Messiah coming to town. I never saw it before. Every kid was crying and touching him and whatever, and he went onto the field with the kids. And, of course, the game stopped immediately. He threw out the first ball. And it was a spectacular event. So that's where it started. Challenger. We gave the Challenger League the first field, and so it went along pretty well. And I don't know if I should jump into how we got into Challenger Day. Do you want me to do that now?
Yeah, we'll cover that in a minute. I'm just interested that when did you put that ramp in? I mean,
that was it. What happened? It was 2 years later, probably about 1997 or 8. We were down. We had built. Basically, it's 6 fields now, and we're going to build a 7th field, which was a 90-foot diamond, and we had $30,000 we had saved up. And I invited one of the directors of Challenger League down because we were thinking about hosting Challenger Day. It had typically been about 60 to 70 kids. And, of course, we had the room, and I said, we're going to make it bigger. So they drove up in our van, and Gary's heard the story many times, And they got the two children out, and they had both in wheelchairs. And it was a good-looking young couple in their early mid-30s. And so I said, let me take one of them. And so I started wheeling them around. And we had rocks for a road. We didn't have a paved road. And so I started pushing on the rocks. I said, boy, this is harder than I thought. And then we had to go down the slight hill, and it was in the morning. I started slipping. And I remember I just grabbed the handles. I said, you cannot let go of this kid, even if I fall. And so we got down the bottom, and I always say that filter between your brain and your tongue kind of disappeared. And I just said, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to have 150 people, we're going to bring Pat Croce, we're going to have the Philly Fanatic, we're going to have everything for you kids. And the mom and dad kept on saying, this is great, Jimmy and Johnny love it so much. And, you know, we put them back in the van. It's the first time I had seen a lift in the van. And they lifted them up, and we locked them in. And the wife's giving me a kiss. This is great. We've never seen anything so good. And they drove away. And I looked at Jeannie Rosio, and I said, we got to do something. I said, you know, they can't go out tonight and get drunk and pass out.
Yeah.
And then my daughter, who has a special needs child, who's only 7, she told me later on, she said, I said, they're on call 24/7. She said, no, everybody's on call 24/7, not just them, their parents, their friends. And so I went to a board meeting that night, and everybody's talking about the 90-foot diamond and the $30,000 we have in the bank. And I said, let me just tell you what happened today. And so what I did is I told them the experience. And without saying, well, let's put the money towards something else, Art DeSola says, I'll be there tomorrow, and I'm going to put a quarter-mile blacktop in for free.
Wow.
Marty and Michael Capoletti said, we're going to build 4 handicap ramps. We're going to put one here, 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 here. Eddie Antoine said, I'm going to get custom-made backpacks for all these kids. Somebody else said, I'm going to get tents. I'm going to get this. And within 10 days, this was 10 days before, it turned around, and we had 175 kids. And that's when we started. So we hosted 4 of the first 5 Challenger Days on the bigger scale.
Wow. That's an amazing story. That speaks so highly of the Little League in the community. Gary, I know we go back now to at least 2008, I think.
Yeah, right.
And I recruited you to come to Challenger, you and Zach. And now you've been running the program pretty much for, about a decade? I mean, we ran it together for a while, but, you know, you're moving on a decade right now. Tell us about the players. What are their special needs, their ages? What kind of kids come to you?
Yeah, Bill, well, yeah, as you indicated, I was recruited in by yourself to come into the league, and it was one of the blessings I had to be able to come over and participate in the Challenger program. I had actually had Zach playing initially, my son, who is 20 now, playing over at Devon Stratford. And we got to the point where we had worked our way through the coach pitch program, and I realized that transition to kid pitch was probably not going to be a good scenario for Zach, and that he was struggling to hit the meatballs I was pitching him, and I was figuring, you know, by the time you get the kids pitching over their head, behind their back, it was probably a good thing to look for a different option, and that's when, Bill, you recruited me into the Challenger program. And I inherited, obviously, when I came in, it was a very well-run program with Coach Vince and Coach Bill. It had that program running for over 20 years over in Berwyn-Paoli. What we've been able to do currently, the players in the program range from 8 to 24 years old. And really what has been amazing is to see the different skill levels, because we really have all different skill levels participating. We've got kids that are in the league that are 8, 9, 10 years old, even some older ones that struggle to hit the ball off of a tee. We've got other players that on our Toscani field, which is our home field for our Challenger games, they're hitting the ball over the fence. And they also know that when they get 2 strikes on them, they need to protect the plate. So one of the things that we've worked on over the years is trying to figure out ways to make sure that all of the players in the league are having a meaningful baseball experience. So, yeah, the disabilities, you ask a little bit about the disabilities some of these players have. You know, it ranges from mild to severe physical and intellectual disabilities. There are kids that have Down syndrome, Fragile X syndrome, mild to severe autism, some with speech or auditory processing issues, some with just general motor development delays, which make it very difficult to swing a baseball bat or catch, a baseball that's thrown to them or hit to them. So the league is great because it accommodates that entire range of skills and age groups to be able to participate and play Little League Baseball, which is such a great sport, and to be played down at the Field of Dreams Baseball Complex.
Now, what do you need to run a challenger program? Cost to participate? How about the coaches? What are the nuts and bolts if someone wanted to start a challenger program? What would they need to do?
Yeah, the first thing really, Bill, is the number one thing that you really need to start a program is a very supportive Little League organization, that truly believes and embraces the opportunity of providing these special needs children with the ability to play baseball. And that's where it all starts. You heard Tom describing some of the commitment that various league members and participants of the league made to get the program up and running and to host a Challenger Day type of event. That really is where it starts with the Little League, because obviously you need some field space, you need the equipment and resources, but that all takes care of itself when you've got the people in the league that are supportive of providing that opportunity to play Challenger baseball. That's really where it all begins. The second major thing that you really need are coaches that are really enthusiastic about baseball and passionate about helping each of the players really develop their skills and to play to the best of their God-given ability. If you take a look at it, you've got a wide range of skills, and not all of those players develop at the same rate. So you need to sort of work with the philosophy and from a coaching perspective of trying to just help each kid get better every day when they come to practice or play in their games or participate in any way with baseball. Those are really the two major things that you need. Obviously, the league, we have some modest registration fees to cover some of the basic costs of the uniforms and the equipment, but there certainly is no hindrance to anybody that would want to play that didn't have the financial means. We'd find a way to allow them to play in the league. So that's really the basic core of what's needed to get the Challenger program going.
Now, for listeners who are unfamiliar with Challenger, and some listeners, hopefully there are some parents out there who, maybe have special needs children, to familiarize them, just can you tell us, how does a Challenger baseball game differ from a regular baseball game?
Yeah, Bill, basically the Challenger games are pretty straightforward from a standpoint. It embraces the opportunity of giving everybody the ability to play and participate. But basically the games are 3-inning games. Every player bats and every player plays in the field each and every inning. The way that the batting and hitting works, all players are afforded the ability to swing until they hit the ball. The players that are not able to hit a pitched ball are encouraged to hit off the tee and make contact. Our goal is with a lot of the players to be able to get them to hit a coached or a pitched baseball, but the ones that still need to rely on the tee, they use the tee in order to make sure that they're having success when they're hitting. The other things that happen with the way the game is played, all players are safe at first base, and the base runners advance around the bases one base at a time, except the last batter. The last batter in every inning clears the bases and surprisingly comes up with a way to hit a home run and a grand slam. So we let that last batter clear the bases and run around the base path, and normally to the applause of everyone at the game. And surprisingly, Bill, one of the things that has been a trademark of the Challenger games, I don't know how this happens, but they're very competitive, but most of them end in a tie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, Tom, Berwyn-Paoli is an exceptional Little League, and not only in terms of the numbers of families that are involved in it, but the hugeness of the hearts of the people. I think you gave a very good testimony of that when you talked about the beginning of Field of Dreams and the steps that were taken to build that Challenger program. A lot of other little leagues are not that are not as embracing, let's say, or to create the space for special needs. So what if a local little league does not have the resources or maybe even the population to start a Challenger division? Can those families enroll their child in Berwyn-Paoli's program, or are there rules against that, as there are in Little League?
No, there aren't. Actually, we cheat. We go from league to league. No, you can join the league that you want. No boundaries to speak of. And we have children who are playing from other areas that could be playing in another Challenger league, but want to play in ours. And,
so you don't have to get a waiver from the president of your little league to do this. There's nothing like that. No,
nothing like when in Little League, regular Little League, which goes to Williamsport, where they're looking over where every person lived, and you want to look at electric bills and voter registrations and where mom and dad live, separated. So this is a lot more casual, which probably makes it a lot more fun and easier to deal with.
Yeah, the other thing, Bill, that I think has come up on a number of occasions, what I normally do when I field a question on that, if there's a player that is from outside our area, I ask them a couple questions most of the time. And, first of all is where do you live and what little league would you normally be in? And to encourage them to check with that local little league, mostly for their own benefit, so that they're around peers that they may see in school or other activities and be very local. However, what we found is that there are players from varying areas that know kids through playing soccer or a dance class or playing basketball that have developed friendships with the players in our league. So in most cases, those kids will say, hey, can I play in your league? I'll generally, as a courtesy, reach out to the other Challenger directors and just ask the question, hey, this player would like to play in our league because he knows these four people that play in our league. And most of the time, as a courtesy, they just say, yeah, no problem.
So in other words, you feed the program through a combination of self-promotion, reaching out to other people, other families, other kids who participate in other special needs activities and sports, but you also respect the territory of other Little League organizations, so you don't think that you're actively recruiting other players from them. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Bill. We want to be a good participant with the districts that we're involved with in Little League, and you don't want other districts thinking that you're out there taking players from their league, because some of these other Challenger programs aren't as robust as what we offer from a standpoint of the numbers and the number of teams and the skill level that we have between and age range that we have with our program.
Now, Gary, we've talked about this next issue many times, and I'd like you to try to summarize how we resolve this issue. Little League International encourages Challenger coaches to emphasize participation rather than competition. But over the years, both of us have seen kids and families of special needs youngsters who want to play competitive baseball, especially when they get older. Wondering if you talk about how that issue was navigated with our program.
Yeah, Bill, it can be a major obstacle for many Challenger programs. In fact, prior to myself getting involved with the league and prior to yourself being involved with the league, there were times when our Challenger program, I believe, was down to around 7 players. And the reason for that was what would happen is players would join at an early age. They'd maybe be an 8, 9, 10-year-old, and then as they matured got a little better. The players that developed their skills and got a little better and were more skilled and able to do more things on the baseball field, it just didn't become fun for them anymore. So once they lost that interest and they lost that fun, it was hard to keep some of the older and more skilled players. So one of the key things that we've been able to do over in the Berwyn-Paoli Challenger program is we've taken that from a low of around 7 players. We're now at around 45 players in our program, divided between 3 teams. And really the key to growth of that program has really been to provide a meaningful baseball experience for all of the players, but in particular the baseball experience to provide for the older and more skilled players that we were typically losing in years past. So that's one of the things that we've really strived to do. And the way we do that is we take that group, when you have players between the ages of 8 and 24 and all different skill levels, it's really important to divide up the practices so that you're practicing with a group of your peers. So we have 3 distinct levels that we do, and when we have our practices on Thursday nights, we divide the players up to 3 different groups based on age and skill level so that you can continue to develop and continue to raise the bar for each level of player as you go through the practices. The other things that we've been able to do with the Berwyn-Paoli program, and a lot of the things were the groundwork and the vision, that you started with these players, is coming up with different opportunities and additional opportunities for the players that had the skill level and were really passionate and interested about playing more baseball and improving their skills. The things like a summer practice session after the regular Challenger season is over. Things like a fall ball program. Introducing the kids that wanted a little more time to play, a winter training program at an indoor training facility. This year, one of the things we're doing is we're having a clinic with the Conestoga High School baseball team coming up this Friday, where the Conestoga players are going to be working with our Challenger program and providing some skills, some instructions. Then we're going to play some competitive games together out on the baseball field. And the other thing that frankly has helped keep the interest of a lot of those older kids was the program that we've started together with the Newtown Edgemont Little League, and taking some of those older kids that had the ability and desire to play competitive baseball, working together with them to play basically baseball by coach pitch Little League rules. Regulation field, calling balls and strikes, providing them the opportunity, 3 outs at the end of the inning, providing an opportunity for them to play real competitive baseball. It's amazing what you see these kids doing out on the field when you push them a little bit and really keep raising the bar. Some of the quality of the baseball that we see at those sort of pickup games on Sunday night is absolutely phenomenal. And not only that, you see the trash talking back and forth between the kids, which is always fun to watch.
Yeah, Joe Catania, did you pronounce the last name Catania?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Joe has been huge. His family has been a huge part of that, and we're very grateful to him for that. Tom, Saturday, May 19th, is a huge day for Berwyn-Paoli Little League and for the Challenger teams across the region. Tell us about it and how that day has grown and why all the Little Leagues love it when Berwyn-Paoli hosts Challenger Day.
I'd like to say it's because of my cooking when I go down the field and grill. They won't let me cook that day. Just to give you an idea, years ago when we first started doing it, about 1999, we increased it to about 175 children, then it went up to 185, then we skipped a year, and then we're over 220, then 225, and it just kept on climbing, and now this year we're looking at possibly as many as 375 children. So wow. It's by reputation, it's gotten bigger and bigger. We start fighting for early in the season when the first meetings come on. Gary and our president, Mike Nichols, will request it. We requested it 5 years ago when it was the 20th anniversary to Field of Dreams, because they played the first game there, and we had it back. And then we didn't expect that. That was in 2013. We did not expect it to have it in 2015, but somebody dropped out at the last minute, and they said, you guys can throw these things together pretty quickly. So we did. We threw it together in about 2 months. But this year, it was our 25th anniversary of the opening of the fields, and what we want to do is have the kids back there again with the Philly Fanatic, again throwing out the first ball. And so we started, I checked my calendar, we started in early December with our first meeting. Right.
Wow.
The core group, and we keep inviting people. And a lot of people say, I can't come, keep me advised, do this, do that. So we have to do a lot, getting all the logistics. Now, fortunately, we've been doing it enough. I call Taylor Rental, and I say I want exactly what we had 2 years ago, but I want one more tent, and I want 3 more tables and 2 more chairs. And then I call such and such, and I say the same thing that we had a couple of years ago, and we want more. So we have a list, and we have the same people we can call, the people who do the bags. It's a company, Emke Manufacturing in Philadelphia. I went over, pick out the bag, and they said, okay, just get us the logo for this year. And a couple of years ago, we had what was the logo a couple of years
Game
ago?
On.
Game On.
Game On,
and this
yeah.
year it's Building Dreams for 25 years.
Yes.
Yeah, something like that. And so we have a lot of people we call on, and it's amazing because a lot of people who are involved with making this thing successful this year, we hope it will be, don't have children in the league anymore. Their children are in college. But what's happened also is getting our buddies out there is really important, because we like to have 200-plus buddies, and we get them the buddy shirts made up for them, and it's an experience that they like. It's an experience that will stay with them. When we were first talking about doing it, we were thinking this would be a real benefit for the children, the players. And then we thought, second, the parents. And we didn't really think about the buddies, but after watching it for the first couple of years, we realized the people who got the most out of it were the buddies. They got the most out of it. It was an experience for them, because with some of the people, they were kids that they had seen in their school and didn't know. And now they saw them in a totally different light, where they were playing a sport. And it was really nice. But this year,
Tom, you're going to have to explain the concept of buddies for our listeners, and why you feel they have gotten more out of this, because we know, at least with Asperger's and autism, this is a growing population, and this is our society. I mean, we have to learn to live in a more diverse world with people who do have special needs. So tell us who exactly the buddies are, what their role is, and how they gain from this experience.
Well, we call them buddies. Not all of them are buddies. Some are just helpers. But the buddies basically, we have mostly high school students. Okay, once in a while a college student, once in a while a parent will jump in, and sometimes we'll have what I call mature middle school students. It depends on who they'd be helping, but they would basically help a player. A buddy would help a player in the field. And a lot, like Gary said, a lot of the players don't need help. They're fine the way they are. But you might have an 8-year-old, and you have a 13-year-old up the bat. Now you're playing with a T-ball, which is soft, but still it could hurt somebody if it's hit hard. So the buddy might stand next to that person, and if something's coming hard to them, they'll knock it down, just slow it up. And then the child will pick it up and throw it somewhere or do something. On the other hand, if somebody's in a wheelchair, they'll have them up the bat, and they'll hit off a tee, and then the buddy will wheel them down to first base. So they're very helpful. Now, our buddies also, we have some of them who don't even get on the field. They'll be directing traffic. They'll be picking up trash. They'll come the night before. They'll put up tents. They'll stuff all the bags that we get for the children. So our buddies do a variety of things, but typically the buddy is the one who's on the field. And they have a buddy shirt, and we have our players all get red shirts, and our buddies get blue shirts, royal blue. So you can see who they are. And it's nice seeing that sea of blue shirts out there working, and we usually take a picture of them at the very end. We have a couple of videos we made in 2013 and 15. I think 15 is the one where we got probably about 2/3 of the buddies before they left at the end of the day. and we sat them all together, and they took a group picture, and it was really nice. But the buddies are special, and to me, a lot of times the parents come down, they'll start doing work, and I say, stop. You can direct them what to do, but let them do it. They have to learn. But their experience with these children is amazing. They all come back, not just feeling good, but learning. They really do learn from this. And that's what it's all about, really. And so you open your eyes. Like you said, it's the society is growing, and they have to be prepared for it.
Bill, one of the other advantages that I see, a lot of the kids that are coming down in the high school age, helpers and buddies that are coming down are athletes themselves, and I think it lets them get a greater appreciation for, how fortunate they are to have their athletic skills. And looking at some of the players out there that are out there on the field that have these various disabilities, looking at how hard they have to work in order to hit a baseball or throw a baseball or catch a baseball, I think it gives them an appreciation for their God-given ability. And it has them thinking about and having a greater understanding and appreciation for their own athletic skills. So I think that's another big benefit that the buddies get that come down to help us on Challenger Day or throughout the season.
And I think we probably should add too that most of these buddies are graduates or alum of the Berwyn-Paoli Little League and have moved on to Conestoga High School, and they are some of the most wonderful people, both softball and baseball, that you would ever want to meet. I mean, my son Ben, who is autistic, just fell in love with his buddies during his time. And again, I think that speaks so highly of the program that has developed at Berwyn-Paoli. I'm sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Just going to say one thing. We had a fellow, Don Martin, a few years ago. He teaches at one of the local schools, and he also coaches. And he started bringing his girls out when they were about 10 years old on Sunday. And they worked there till they would be buddies, and they would keep the concession stand open. They did it for about 6 years. And now some of them are mothers, and they come back. Their kids are in the league now. But it was a great experience, and he got them there. And so it was just something they were going to do every Sunday, just go down the fields. And he might have a practice afterwards, but they hung around. And one of the things we did, too, is which other leagues didn't do, is we provided field time. And that was big. But a lot of the leagues, every team wants to practice so much. And we said, no, they have the fields on Thursday nights. They have fields all Sunday afternoon. Yeah. And that's it. Nobody else has it. And that was very big. And so there's a lot of things that help do it. But I think really what made it grow, and you were part of it, Bill, is Vince McEnany, you, Bill, and Gary. You put together a fine core of adults who really led it. You took it from being the equivalent of the T-ball team. You moved it up a whole other step. And I think that really had to do something. So the kids were playing, but you were still room for the kids who couldn't play that well. So that's where I think, like Gary said, we were down to 7 players now, up to 45, and a lot has to be attributable to Vince, Gary, and you. There's no doubt about it.
Well,
and the rest of us.
Thank you.
We're spectators, front and center, but we're still spectators.
Yeah. Let me just actually wind this up by asking each of you gentlemen the reward for you. I mean, Tom, you've been doing this for a long time, and I have personally seen you make Challenger a priority, if not the priority. I mean, I remember times when there were parents from other little leagues coming in, waiting on the sides of the field, and there were some rather aggressive fathers who were basically telling us to get off the field. And I remember saying, well, I don't have to do anything here because Tom's around. and there you'd go. You'd go right up to that parent and say, hey, wait a minute. These guys are every bit as important as the rest of this little league. And this is their time. You await your turn. So I know what this means to you, but maybe you could tell our listeners the personal reward that you've gotten out of your involvement with Berwyn-Paoli Little League and especially the Challenger program.
Well, I just enjoy being down there and meeting the people. I enjoy meeting the children. I enjoy all the children, and I just like watching them play, and seeing the rewards that they get from the success or even the failure, but just trying hard. And the Challenger kids do that more than anybody else. They try as hard as anybody else, and that's very rewarding. But just giving them the opportunity, really, with the Challenger players, just the opportunity to be out there and be part of something organized, and it gives the parents, I'm sure, a better feeling about themselves and about their children. But it's from the other people too. For instance, on Picture Day, we always had Challenger Day games. And a lot of people had never seen it. So you have 1,000 kids coming down to take pictures, and they walk by the field and they see this game going on. They don't know what it is, and they'll stop by and watch. Mm-hmm. And it's really a special thing for them. It's educational, but it's rewarding, and for me, I just like seeing the children in the regular league, the children in the Challenger League, just interact basically. And maybe it's not on a one-to-one basis, but interact in that I'm watching them play. And to me, it's just an enjoyable event. I mean, I feel at home when I'm down there, no matter what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Gary, how about you as a coach and as a father?
Yeah, Bill, a good question. I mean, I talk to people all the time because people ask me about how do you figure out how to make this thing work with the travel schedule and everything. And what I try to tell people is, honestly, it's my stress relief from a hectic, crazy work schedule. And I tell people all the time, I've never had a bad day on the Challenger baseball field. So, if you can look at it like that and have that type of approach, I think what the rewards you get out of that come from watching some of the players maybe that have been in the league for 7, 8, 9 years that have struggled to hit a baseball. Hit that ball at anything but off a tee, watching them and having them be able to finally hit a pitch baseball and seeing the smile on their face. That type of thing is irreplaceable. You see those type of activities, even things like, as you know, I've got a 20-year-old son in the senior program here. And, when I first started pitching to him 10 years ago when I started Challenger, and that I'd go down to the fields and I'd throw him 150 pitches, and you were lucky to get 5 foul tips. Now, when I'm pitching to him on the mound, I'm getting line drives hit right back at me, and I have to get out of the way. Right. Watching the progress that those kids have made over the years is truly been rewarding. And the other thing that I think is a highlight is you see some of the highlights every season. The one that comes to the top of my mind is watching a player that it was an amputee player several years ago from one of the other leagues that had basically his legs cut off right below the knee and his arms cut off right below the elbow. So he had stumps on all 4 of his arms and his legs. Watching him fill the baseball and throw it to first base.
I remember that.
Like that. You see stuff like that, and that's irreplaceable.
Yeah. Before we go, if, let's say, a listener is interested in the Challenger program or interested in attending Challenger Day at Berwyn-Paoli to see if this is something they might want to get their kid involved in, who would they contact? What phone number would they call or email in order to get that information?
Yeah, if anyone is interested, they can certainly call my cell phone. It is 610-909-7434. Or you can email me at gary.a.brooks@st-gobain.com. If you need that information or that contact information, it's also listed on the Berwyn-Paoli website. So if they go on to the Berwyn-Paoli Little League website, under the Challenger program, that contact information would be there as well.
Well, gentlemen, thanks for being with us tonight. And thank you from the bottom of my heart, because Berwyn-Paoli both the Little League and the Challenger were a huge part of my two sons and their experience growing up. And there are times I don't know where we would have been without it. So I thank you both from the bottom of my heart for all you do for the Little League and for the Challenger program in general.
Well, thank you, Bill. And like we said, and Mike Nichols, who's the president now, keeps on repeating, it's the best thing we do.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the best thing we do. And
Saturday, May 19th, listeners, don't forget, Berwyn-Paoli is hosting Challenger Day, and hopefully we'll see some of you out there. And thanks.
No, it starts at 9, but you should get there a little bit before that, especially if you want to see the Philly Fanatic.
Yes.
You have to get a good seat.
Okay. All right. And thank you, Philly fans, for tuning in. See you next week for another podcast of Philadelphia baseball, past, present, and personal. This is Bill Kashatus rounding third and heading home on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network.